All right, hello everyone. I am Matthew Hawes, Superintendent of Albemarle County Public Schools, and welcome to the Albemarle County Public Schools podcast. On this edition, I have a really special guest on our podcast, and that is Jessica Eisenhower. And Jessica is the 2023 Albemarle County Public Schools Teacher of the Year. And before we get started talking to Jessica, I just want to say briefly that the way that Jessica became the Teacher of the Year was through a nomination process at her school level, and she's a math teacher at Monticello High School. And so what happened in that process was there were many candidates that put in nominations to become the Teacher of the Year at the school level. And based on our educator performance appraisal, the competencies that are on that performance appraisal at her school level, she was selected to be the Teacher of the Year for Monticello High School. And then there's a continued process where we have a panel that assesses the qualities, the practices, and the skills and the results of the teacher based on our educators' performance appraisal. And based on that, they made recommendations to narrow it down to just a few candidates. And then we chose Jessica to be our Teacher of the Year for Albemarle County Public Schools. She is the first Teacher of the Year ever for Albemarle County Public Schools. This is the first year we have had this approach. And so what will happen next is Jessica will go on and represent Albemarle County Public Schools in the Region 5 Teacher of the Year competition. And then I'm assuming she'll win that and then go on to compete at the state level. So if you are listening, you probably want to know more about Jessica and how she came to be the ACPS Teacher of the Year. So let's get started. So Jessica, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yes. So please tell us a little bit about yourself and your life background.
So I have been working for the division for 5 years now. I moved here from Buffalo, New York, where I went to both undergrad and grad school at the University of Buffalo. And then I was a substitute teacher across 7 school districts before working for a year in a charter school. And then I decided to move here to Charlottesville. I've been at Monticello High School ever since, and I have had the pleasure of teaching AFTA, which is algebra, functions, and data analysis, and then some combination of math analysis, pre-calculus, and trig pre-calculus as well.
So you started out as a substitute teacher.
I did.
I bet that really built a lot of your skills.
I think it did. I think it's an important experience to kind of think on your toes, right? Because when you're substitute teaching, you're walking in to another person's classroom with a group of students that you kind of have to immediately find common ground with. And you have to be willing to kind of take whatever comes at you. So I think that was a really impactful experience. It served as my student teaching. I didn't do a formal student teaching placement, but I would argue that I learned quite a lot in that experience.
Yeah, you only just have a few minutes to make relationships right away. So why did you choose to become a high school math teacher?
I did not originally go to school to be a teacher. My undergraduate degree is in actuarial science, and I tried that very briefly. And it's a wonderful job for the people that enjoy a desk job. And I realized that that was not for me. So I went back to grad school. I needed to make a little bit more money because I was a full-time teaching assistant, but they don't pay very well. So I decided to be a substitute teacher, and I fell in love with getting to be in a building every day and building relationships with students and getting to partner with them for 4 years is a really cool experience that I don't think you get in other careers.
That's so true. But for our listeners, what is actuarial science?
I would say accounting, but rather than looking back, it's looking forward. So it's making models and predictions for primarily insurance companies to decide how much risk they can take on, which sounds exciting, but the day-to-day is a little bit less thrilling, I would say.
I'm just curious, do you ever tell your students that was your background?
I do, and I will say it's not that impressive to them. I don't, I think coming out of an academic setting where I was used to doing very well at school, I have found that in the high school setting, that's maybe not as impressive to my kids as some of the other things that I bring to the table. So,
Yeah. So speaking of other things that you bring to the table, what is your favorite subject in school besides math?
I really love English. I really love to read, and I really love kind of the discussion format that you're allowed to have in an English class, where you can kind of work with students to understand different concepts and different ideas. So I think if I wasn't a math teacher, it would be really cool to be an English teacher.
Not to put you on the spot, but what's your favorite book right now?
My favorite book overall is My Sister's Keeper. I think that is a really, really impactful story where there's a lot of different perspectives. And I think that's really important in my life in general, is just this idea of perspective taking. And so I really like Jodi Picoult as an author because she does a lot of that.
So anybody listening to this podcast, if you just heard that and you send me an email, and the first person who sends me an email asking for a copy of My Sister's Keeper, we will get you a copy of it. What extracurricular activities or hobbies do you enjoy outside of your work?
I really like reading. I also host trivia on the weeknights and on the weekends, so that's fun. Using some of those teacher skills to kind of engage an audience is always a good time. It's definitely a different experience, but I really enjoy still interacting with people even in my free time.
When you say you host trivia, where do you do that?
Different restaurants and breweries around the area. So I work with Geeks Who Drink, which is a company that runs trivia in the Charlottesville area.
Yeah, my wife and I were out. This was back more in the winter time. We were out, and this must be what you do. But the person came and passed out bingo cards, and then was doing trivia. So if you answered the question correctly, then you got that spot on your bingo card. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it is a lot of fun.
So do you think to do that, are you more of an extrovert or an introvert?
I would classify myself as an introvert, which is interesting because, a lot of my hobbies and my career are definitely something that involve me to be extroverted. But I think I really enjoy getting to engage with people. I enjoy getting to learn things about people. I enjoy getting to share things with people. So I think I'm probably an extroverted introvert.
Yeah, you know what that's called, right?
What?
It's an ambivert. An ambivert.
Interesting. I didn't know that. Today
Yeah.
I learned.
You can switch code, and so chances are you really do. There's a misconception that introverts really don't like other people, but the reality is that introverts can and do enjoy relationships with other people. They just recharge by having quiet time. That's all. So you have really addressed positive change in the school at Monticello High School through your leadership and the success that you've had with students. And you do it student by student. If you could change something else about high school or school in general, what would it be? What would you make different?
I think you hit the nail on the head with the student by student approach. I think if we could find a way to build systems that really encourage that as much as possible, both in the day-to-day supports that we're giving to students, having the support and the resources that we need to individually work with each student, but also working on the overall structures so that each student has their own path to the future, whatever that may look like, I think is going to be the most impactful thing we can do moving forward.
What is your favorite thing about being a teacher?
I get to work with my favorite people in my favorite place. So every day is different, but every day is really fulfilling. To get to partner with these students and their families and their communities for 4 years and watch them grow and accomplish things, again, I think is very unique to this career.
Yes, I agree. And that's a wonderful perspective. As you look to the future, what are your dreams for yourself?
I can't wait. Well, I can wait to teach the kids of my kids. I think that's going to be a really cool experience to kind of continue to build my role in this community and work with the children of the students that I taught as a second and third year teacher. We have a lot of that at Monticello. We have a lot of staff that have been there since the doors opened, who, now have taught multiple generations in a family. And I think that is a really cool thing to be able to do. I'm also really eager to see how public education shifts in the coming years, and the changes that we make based on what we now know students need, both within our walls and once they leave.
Yeah, and I know that the families that are in the area, particularly around your school, they're going to be, when you're there and their children in your class, they're going to be so excited about that. Ms. Eisenhower. And so, what advice do you have for other teachers about school and life?
I think my biggest piece of advice would be to be willing to perspective take and put yourself in other people's shoes, whether it be students or families or fellow staff members, to kind of remember that everyone is trying to do their best, and to hold that perspective and to understand that people have perspectives that are different than your own. And I think a part of that is also willing to be vulnerable, with your fellow staff members and with your admin team when you need help, to be vulnerable with your families and communities when you don't know something, to be vulnerable with your students. I think that goes a really long way in building those relationships.
That's great advice. That's good advice for being a teacher and also in life in general. What if you could give one piece of advice for today's students, what would be the main piece of advice? Maybe it's something you already share with your students.
I think it's important for our students as young people to listen to everyone in their lives, right? Listen to all the advice that you are receiving, but trust yourself to know what is best for yourself and to make your own decisions moving forward. Ask a lot of questions, take in a lot of information, but at the end of the day, trust that you know what is best for yourself and you know what you are capable of.
Man, that's great advice. I'm gonna put that on a sticky note and put it on my computer screen. I'm gonna follow that advice. I appreciate it. All right, now you saw these questions ahead of time, so you can't say that I'm stumping you here or surprising you. It is a tradition when I do a podcast. Not that I'm a big podcaster, but I really like to ask people about their favorite snacks. So right now, what is your favorite snack?
So I'm from Buffalo. So I think the only correct answer is chicken wings with blue cheese. They're a snack, they're a meal, breakfast, lunch, dinner. I think they're the perfect food.
Well, so you're having your fidelity to Buffalo. So the buffalo wing is the favorite food. Excellent. Great choice. The last question is, what is one accomplishment that you've made so far in your lifetime that you look back on the most proudly?
This is a hard question to answer. I think I would say going to college. I think being the first member of my family to go to college was a huge undertaking, but I think it set me up for all of the other things that I have done that I am proud of, and all of the other things that I have done that I feel really lucky to get to take part in. Without that accomplishment, none of the rest of this would be possible. So.
Wow, that is so true. And that's something you and I have in common. I'm also a first generation college student, and I had never really thought about it till you just said that. It is true. The things that whatever I've been doing with my life, I would not have had access to be able to do these things and enjoy getting to know people like you and all the great teachers we have and all the families that I wouldn't have had access to that. So you've definitely given me something to think about. It's also not easy being a first generation college student and having children and trying to navigate that, because even though I was a high school teacher and a high school principal and all that, still it's, as a parent, it's unique territory to be in as you work with your kids on what their next steps are going to be. Mm-hmm. So having teachers like you that went through navigating that without a Google map of life, and having to navigate it and be flexible and have resilience. It's really valuable for our students, whether they choose to go to college or not. Being able to have a conversation with someone like you who's been there and done that, embarking out on your own on a journey, it's worth more in many ways than the content that we can share. I just want to tell you, I'm so appreciative of your time today. It really has been a pleasure to talk with you and to learn more about you. And you've been a great guest.
Thank you.
Is there anything you would like to say in parting?
I really appreciate being recognized. I work with really amazing people, and I certainly would not be here if it were not for all of the people in this county that have supported me along the way. So I am very grateful.
Well, I'll tell you, Jessica, we're so grateful you're here in Albemarle County. And I know I speak on behalf of your students and families and your colleagues that you no doubt every single day make a very positive difference for all of us. So you keep up the great work, and I look forward to seeing what you do next.
Thank you.
Thank you.